Good day, everyone. I'm going to go over a somewhat in-depth tutorial on how to set up animated doors for placeables, primarily for placeables within the Farming Simulator 19 game. So, getting into it really quick here. So we got our standard type of roll-up door. So you have your doors, and this one has 6 different segments, to which each one has individual keyframes, I guess, to get it to move either up or down based on this axis. The script that we have set up here gets for that. It has the 6 main part nodes to include the individual keyframes. So to get right into it here, your part node, main part node is going to be the physical piece. So in this case, each segment is going to have its own part node. This one here has this anything from the right side of the 0 greater sign. You do not need the 0 greater sign. So that'll be the part node for each segment. So each segment will have that's the main part node. Now, as far as how that moves, is going to be based on the translate of it, and you can, in order to establish your keyframes in here, you would move these up or down, I guess, as far as what you want to do. You want to be able to copy those translates right to your keyframes. In this case here, we're basically moving each segment up to replace the previous segment, so there's no confusion, I guess, as far as that goes. This start off here, this moves up to segment 2, then to segment 3, segment 4, and you can see how the main translates for each segment kind of coincides with that, just to kind of keep it simple. So it moves up in these durations of time that you set from one segment to the next until it's fully open and or closed. So that's basically how to set up the keyframes. In this case, it ends up being 6 because we have 6 different segments to this particular roll-up door. And then on the last segment, as far as the final position, this is the Y position. So you got your X, Y, Z. So if I copy this, is to kind of demonstrate how this works. If I move this up all the way up to its fully upright position, you can see that it's at there, and it also has a rotation. By the way, you don't want it straight up. It's going to have a rotation of a minus 45 in this case. So if we do a minus 45, that's going to be its final resting place on that last translate. And that'll coincide with each individual segment of this particular type of roll-up door. The other prerequisite to setting up this you want on your main transform, as far as everything included in here, you want to put this script callback. And on create script callback, you would have to add that in there in most cases if you're building these from scratch. And make sure you have this animated map objects on create script callback within that. Otherwise, it will not animate. As far as the keyframes go, those are all going to be in your script itself for your placeable. That's what I'm primarily going over. If you want to put this into a map, you will need to add a separate type of XML file name deal to have it read these keyframes that you're applying here within a separate XML. So I won't go into that too much. I'm primarily going to focus just on creating these for a placeable, and then you can go from there. So that's basically the nitty-gritty, I guess, as far as setting up for keyframes for a roll-up door. Making sure that you have this map, this animated objects map army create, and that goes for any type of animations you have to make sure this is in here, otherwise it won't work. And that's on the main transform to include everything, not just all the individual pieces and sub transforms, which leads me right into a swinging door. As far as a shop door, I'll move right over onto this. We have a shop door that's set up here, and I have it currently all the way open. You mostly want to set your rotation on this is to be closed. You can set it up to be open, but then you have to convert that, make that known, I guess, in your script as far as like where it's starting from. So the starting point, the best way to start off is in the closed position. Another prerequisite that is 100% needed, I guess, to make sure that the swinging doors in this fashion will open and or close on the proper pivot is your pivot itself needs to be in a position where the hinges would be. So otherwise it's not going to animate properly. So you do want to make sure that that's set up correctly. and if it's not, make sure to do so. Let's see, so I just need to reset. Yeah, let me reset these all to 0. We're going to set these all to 0 for starters here, and I'll go over this in the script here. So once that's set to 0, this will be, again, much the same as your roll-up door. You want this to be the main transform as far as to include everything, even your sub-transform as far as hardware, glass, and all that stuff. Make sure that's all included as far as what you want to be animated along with it. So as far as this particular shop door, I have this set up in this position here. This one has a part node of 511, and again, same as the roll-up door. Anything to the right-hand side of the 0 greater sign. You do not need the 0 greater sign. That is what's going to be included in here, and that's going to be on the main transform. I had it on the wrong one. So the main transform, that's what you want as your main part node for that. And also the same thing, main transform, just like I showed up with the roll-up door. You want to have, in this case, this does have, you don't need this if it's in a placeable. For a placeable, all you need is just the onCreate script callback added to that, and this animated map objects onCreate is included. Otherwise, again, your animation will not work. So make sure that is applied to that, to your main transform, to include your trigger and all that, much the same as the roll-up doors as I showed previously. So just to kind of show, there's only 2 keyframes on shop doors. One for the close position, which is at 0, and for the open. In this case, we have 115 degrees of rotation with that pivot in that proper position. So there's your X, Y, and your Z. So on the Y, it's 115 degrees of rotation on this entire transform for the walk-in door. That's our main part node, just to kind of summarize. So on the Y, for this one here, we have 115 degrees of rotation, so that's how far it'll open by using the trigger. Now, as far as the triggers go, leading right into the triggers, your triggers are going to be set up like much the same way as your doors. You want to, wherever your trigger is located within your main part node. This one's at a 510, so in this case, this is where our trigger's at. 510, same thing. Anything to the right of the 0 greater sign, that is where your trigger is going to be, and that's the part node that you want to put in for the trigger node. Now, if you're going to add sounds to that, basically use this construct for adding a sound as far as your sounds, and then that the fact that it's moving, and then wherever that location of that is, you want to point to that direction. So if it happens to be from the direct game directories, you would use that directory using the $data. In this case here, I've got them directly applied to our mod folder, so these sounds are directly within the placeable itself. So I have that directed to map sounds. So you just want to point that to the proper sound file, I guess, for that, and then the link index for this one is obviously at a 511. Same thing as far as for all the other parts to it, that's at a 511. So as far as that goes, you do your 511, which is your main door. This is where you want the sound to be applied. So depending on if it's open or closed, that sound will be applied to that. So that basically, in this case, ends up being the same node as your main transform for your door, the physical door, not the main transform of this truly trigger. And make that abundantly clear. Do not include a trigger, I guess, as far as what you want to be animated, because you don't want the trigger itself to be animated. And that goes the same thing for a roll-up door. Hopefully that does give a little bit of explanation as to how to apply keyframes and animation to such types of doors as swinging doors and roll-up doors. And I want to thank you for watching.